apologies for that. So for those living in Europe, it's an apéro session, an aperitif session, let's say. And for those in the US, welcome. And it's an afternoon or morning session. Thank you all for being here. We will just wait for a few moments still to let attendees popping in before starting, and then we will kick off in a few moments. So I see there are still some participants joining, but we will start already in the meantime. Thank you all for being here. We had quite some interest, over 40 registrations today, and people are now joining. So we are very glad that you are all here, from pharmaceutical companies to beauty companies to fast-moving consumer goods companies. So it's a quite wide variety here. So thank you for being here in this weird and challenging periods. We want to bring in this weird times some good vibes and some inspiration for you. So my name is Hamaekers. I'm founder of 1 Inch Whale, and a packaging expert from a consumer research or insights perspective, let's say. So 1 Inch Whale is a company who helps other companies to be relevant and sustainable in a world which is increasingly complex. And we do that by using the latest technology and science-based methods and approaches. Today's speakers are Jasper Scheir. He's also founder of 1 Inch Whale. Hi, Jasper.
Hi, hello everybody.
And we also have Karin Steculorum. She is partner and color director of Color Navigator. Hi, Karin.
Hello, everyone.
So Color Navigator is 1 Inch Whale's exclusive partnership when we use their color patented navigator system for research and insights purposes. Today we will talk about the importance of color in packaging more specifically. We will firstly talk a bit about the importance of system 1 thinking in pack design, the necessity to use brand testing methods in packagings for success, the multisensory impact, but of course the majority of this session will go about how to create impact with the right color in your packaging. So before kicking off, a couple of housekeeping rules. So you will receive the presentation and the recordings of this webinar afterwards that will be made available for you guys. So you don't have to take pictures of all the slides. You will have them all after this session. Don't worry. There is a Q&A box on the top or the bottom of your screen normally where you can put your questions in. So please do that during the session. If you have a question, just type it in there. We will answer them at the end of the session, where we will have about 10 minutes Q&A for answering questions. Last but not least, stay tuned. At the very end of the session, we will give away something. So stay tuned and maybe you will win something. So let's get started. Pack design is a silent seller. Basically, it's heavily underestimated, but with a very powerful impact. A design agency created this pasta packaging about a couple of years ago, and it was a range of pastas that they created, and it shows very well how you can be very distinct in a very creative way, and also how you can break through the clutter of offer in the packaging shelf. It immediately tells you what it is all about, and in special for me, it puts a smile on my face. I'm not sure if this packaging was ever launched into the market, but anyhow, it tells us, or it invites us to be creative, to make the difference and to stand out. And yet, it doesn't hold any color. And that's, of course, what we will talk about today. But before talking about that, we just go to a couple of introduction slides. First of all, I think it's important just to go to the three main functions of a packaging. The first function is a direct function. Of course, goodies have to be packed, protected, stored, kept fresh. It has to be usable. People have to open and close it very easily, store it very easily, and stuff like that. A second important element is of a packaging or function of a packaging is to guide the shopper towards its product or brand he wants to buy. Firstly, that comes down to informing or motivating explicitly what the product is for, the context, the usage, the variants, the taste, the ingredients, and stuff like that. Secondly, it has to help to find the product easily on shelf. And it has to do with being recognized, being found, the cues on the pack that help consumers and shoppers to do that. Thirdly, it has to inform implicitly. Cues for originality, superior quality, and stuff like that. The third main function of a packaging is to elicit basal reactions, to seduce the shopper, to get people eager to buy the products they want to have. And today we are not going to talk about the direct function, not about the informative function, but about these functions where color can make a difference in creating impact in shelf. Before talking about that, very quickly talking about or explaining a bit how people decide. And of course, meanwhile, we are all very aware of the work of Daniel Kahneman, System 1, System 2. 95% of what we are doing is driven unconsciously, is intuitively, is driven autopilot even. And you can compare it a bit with driving a car or learning to drive a geared car. Of course, in the US, most cars are automated gears, but in Europe, most of the cars are geared, and you have to learn how to gear and to change gears. And in fact, when you start doing that, it's like a hell. It goes very slowly. It takes a lot of cognitive load. It's our system 2 in action. After a while, this process gets into our system 1. And it gets into our autopilot, intuitive behavior. And in fact, everything we do in Decide in life is mainly driven by our system 1, us not even being aware of that. The quote of Daniel Kahneman summarizes it well. Thinking is to humans as swimming to cats. They can do it, but they prefer not to. And in fact, that is so true for everything we buy. Even for high involvement and luxury products, our system 1 mostly took the decision already, and our system 2 is constantly finding a reasoning for this behavior. We live in a world of overload of communication, visual communication especially, and this photo of Times Square illustrates that very well for me. When you are standing on the square, you feel a bit paralyzed. It's like your breath is taken away for a while. Did you know that there are over 1 million commercial messages found on Times Square, which is tremendously a lot? In fact, 83% of the things that we perceive is visual stuff. So it's very clear that the visual stimuli we are over-solicited with visual stimuli, and our brain filters away in a split second the things which are not relevant for us. If we translate that to the store, on average, in a Western European store, we have about 20 to 30,000 stock keeping units, so unique products. If we look at the US, it's even 50,000 on average. And if we look at what ends up at the homes of consumers on a yearly base, we see that that's only 1%. 2 to 300 out of the 2030 or 500 out of the 50,000 products, only 1%. This is telling us that apart from the fact that the market is highly segmented, what I love, not necessarily would be liked by you, the most important reason for not being bought is not being seen, is not being considered. And this is in fact what our brain does when we stand in front of the shelf. Our brain instantly deselects and deselects. And it's like a blurred map where big color blocks will guide us to the product or the brand that we are looking for. And in fact, if we are looking for a product, we are focusing on a product. With our more than 20 years of experience in packaging research and eye tracking research, we see that 80% of the fixation that people do when they are shopping is on the product itself. So people are definitely focused on the things that they want to buy. Unless you can steer some gaze behavior towards a certain area with colors or contrast, most of the shelf is filtered out and not seen for consumers. We decide in the supermarket in about 3 to 5 seconds, maximum. And it goes very fast. And what you see here is an opacity plot of a packaging where we see at 1 and 2 and 3 seconds, the areas which are enlightened are much focused on. So you see what happens in the first 3 seconds and which of the elements are seen in those 3 seconds. And it is in those 3 seconds that the magic has to happen. The things you want to communicate have to be seen in that frame. So if we translate that to the design of a packaging, there are some system 1 principles which are definitely to be used. And the first one is use very simple and if possible, implicit cues, like you see here in this perfume Zen, which implicitly communicates the Zen feeling through bamboo, the East cues for relaxations which are embedded in this packaging. Secondly, limit the number of elements. Maximize 3 to 4 chunks of information on the packaging. That's exactly what Milka or Mondelez is doing with its Milka brand here. They worked very hard the past decade to simplify their packagings to the core, using 3, 4 chunks of information. And of course, you can argue that Milka is a very strong brand and has very strong brand assets consistently used in time. That's true. And that brings me neatly to Jasper. Jasper, who will continue the session with the necessity to implement brand assets in your pack design. Jasper.
Thank you, Wim. So indeed, another element that is important to take into account for pack design is to leverage your brand's distinct assets. And Byron Sharp states that branding is the ongoing fight for attention and not for love. So for pack design, this means that a beautifully designed pack will be useless if it doesn't succeed in capturing the attention of the shopper. If it doesn't get noticed, it will not get bought. The key to success here is creating consistent and constantly used, easy to remember brand assets, which will over time create distinctive memory structures and bring the brand front of mind when a consumer is shopping that category. And Carlsberg has leveraged its brand assets consistently and continuously over the years. Its iconic bottle, use of the green color, but also the word probably, which without explicitly naming the brands, automatically brings the brand top of mind. For packaging, brand assets can include a logo, a color, a font, pack material, and so on. So for marketeers and researchers, it's important to investigate and identify their distinct brand assets. Which visual elements are linked to your brand and your brand only? And if these are implemented successfully into a pack design, shoppers will unconsciously notice your brands in a split second. A very well-known example in this respect is Tropicana, who changed its pack design a couple of years ago to the one on the right. And immediately they lost 20% in sales. The new packaging abandoned all distinct brand assets and shoppers didn't recognize their brand anymore. So if you are able to leverage brand assets on pack, it will help to enforce intuitive navigation in store and create powerful brand blocks guiding the shopper. Also for secondary packaging, attention should be given to implementation of the right brand assets for easy recognition, as research has shown that secondary packaging can have a huge additional influence on brand recognition in store. The next important element is to view pack design within a multisensory product experience. We humans, we're all prone to synaesthesia to some extent. And synaesthesia is a perceptual phenomenon in which stimulation of one sensory mode leads to involuntary experiences in a second sensory mode. So it's about taste what you see or feel what you hear. And when we use metaphors, we often use this combination of senses. Think about loud colors or sweet music or bitter cold. So why is this important? Well, because we buy and we consume products using our senses. And color, more than any other element, is able to transfer those specific cues. For example, if the color of a food product does not match our expectations, we may perceive its taste and flavor differently. Experiments have shown that consumers cannot identify orange juice as orange juice if a blue colorant is added, or that brown M&Ms are rated to have more chocolate-intensive flavor than red ones, although they all have the same taste. So for packaging design, this means that visual pack elements can lead to specific taste expectations or experiences. And when the total sensory experience feels right, the chance of long-term success is higher. In this example of Magnum, you can already taste the chocolate, both in terms of intensity as in terms of its crunchiness. But there are also other ways how the look of a packaging influences consumer perceptions. Research has shown that long and narrow pack formats, like the one on the right, induces more health perceptions than small and bulky ones, like the one on the left. So the one on the left would fit better with full fat propositions than the pack on the right. So now we have arrived to colors and the power of colors in pack designs to create impact. And it is a scientific fact that colors and emotions are tightly linked together, with colors having a huge impact on our mood, and different colors radiating different emotions. Of all senses, it is a visual system that demands most of our brain activity. And in that respect, color perception is a leading force. Next come shapes, numbers, and words. So when creating pack designs, we should take this visual hierarchy into account and give far less attention to the words on the pack, which are often overemphasized versus color. Research has shown that in 85% of all purchasing decisions, color is the main element, and that 62 to 90% of snap judgments about products are based on the color alone. It is the visual component we remember most about a brand, and in that respect, of course, a key contender to become a distinct brand asset. Consumers can reject a packaging because of the color, because it doesn't match with the product, or because it creates the wrong perceptions. The notion that color has a huge impact on our shopping behavior can be demonstrated by a case by Google. Google ran a couple of experiments to decide which shade of blue they should use on advertising links in Google Search and Gmail. And as a result, they learned that a slightly purple shade of blue was more conducive to clicking than a slightly greener shade of blue. And so the decision was made to go for the purple shade of blue. And often these things are decided by marketeers who would just say, I like this color, and they go for it. But as Google has shown, implementation of the right color of blue earned the company an extra $200 million in revenue. And when we look and compare that with packaging, here you see some designs of the water brand Spa. They have a range of flavored waters, and we optimize the color of the cap so that it matches better with the flavor variety and drives more appeal. And as you see, the differences are rather small, but they will have a big impact on an emotional and unconscious level, and ultimately on sales. So using the right color shouldn't be a subjective experience, but rather the result of a science-based approach. And that's where our partner Color Navigator comes in. They have developed a patented color system that allows companies to use color in an informed, science-based way, increasing shopper conversion. So let's listen to Karin. She's a partner and color director at Color Navigator. What color and the color navigation system is all about.
Hello, thank you, Jasper. Now, what is color? Light is a projection of electromagnetic waves transferring energy. You see here on the chart different kinds of those electromagnetic waves. Now, we agree that we should protect ourselves from the sunlight and put some cream on it. X-rays, we know that if we have too many, it's not good for our health. And microwaves, we agree and we understand that it's heating our food. Now, color is light that consists out of these electromagnetic waves and the different wavelengths and frequencies, they influence our behavior enormously. This is a fact. Still, it seems that many people are still talking about color as if it were something that's not so important, or that it reflects morely the personal taste of people. Science proves us that, of course, this is not the case at all. Now, the Color Navigator Institute was founded in 1995 by civil engineer Luc van Rentergem, and together with his research team, he investigated the effect on color on our brains, and this with applications in the most diverse sectors. This research resulted in the Color Navigator system, and it's the first company that patented this scientific color intelligence, combined with data insights and artificial intelligence to create these certified color identities. Now, we guarantee focus on a specific market, a specific target group and geographical area, strong identities with more impact and better overall conversions across all touch points. Now, it also helps to have no more subjective discussions about color. It's time consuming, and it gives a lot of doubts to teams. Now, with those certified colors, you immediately provide better and also measurable results. Now, what is the patented Color Navigator system? It consists out of almost more than 10,000 colors, each with unique coordinates and coding. It reveals the type of a color or a consumer, its style, and its cultural or geographical relevance. Now, similarity, association with taste, smell, atmospheres, price perception, quality, and impact on specific buyer personas are very relevant in the system. All the coordinates are continuously enriched and fed by new usage and sales data through the use of digital application and market research and insights. You can think it as a kind of Google map of colors. We are able to select and combine colors, knowing which of the color coordinates you need to get the impact where you are looking for. Now, in terms of color psychology, science and emotion are linked. By repeatedly associating colors with certain products, we rely on this information. For example, we associate limes with the color yellow and strawberry with the color red. Now, unconsciously emotional, we will find a product sweeter if the packaging refers to the product with bright reddish or pinkish colors. Eating yogurt, for example, with a pink spoon, it will give you a taste of a sweeter yogurt. And, for example, we will eat much more when there are accents of red or orange in the area. Now, unconsciously functional, color has also a very important impact. The color red will increase your adrenaline and we feel excited. The color green will make us restful and will make us feel in harmony. So this means when you use these colors in a functional way, you can guide your viewer on websites, on your information in a specific way that you will need. Now, how do you find the right color for your product identity? Because you want to stimulate certain emotions. Because there are hundreds of red, there are hundreds of yellow, and how do I combine those colors? And there's where the Color Navigator system becomes interesting. Now, you see here on this slide, the right intensity of flavor or message, because each color in our system has a specific color style and a specific tone of voice for a certain packaging identity that you define with your target group and audience you want to address. Now, you will see also on this slide that clustering, same tone of voices, this means colors with same properties will have specific impacts. And here it's arranged by color intensity. However, when you look at a complete range, it's also very important that you see differences between similar products, because you don't want to take the wrong bottle home and you don't want to waste time we want to make quickly a decision. Now, making it simple by evoking a color image that is clear, it is set, it is necessary, but you always have to take, of course, different parameters into account. This image shows, for example, how we use studies and available data, mapping it with our coordinates in the Color Navigator system and associate them with different, for example, here, taste properties. It allows us to ensure that different flavors are clearly differentiated on your package or pass a specific message for example, informed decisions. Do I want to have drinks that are low in calorie, or do I want them that it makes the impression that it's a sweet drink, but again, also with a low calorie impact. So you always have to match products with the taste associations your client is looking for, but you have to be consistent. You have to see enough differences between different products, and you have to see it as a full range. Now, can we fool our customers, or can we put them in a mood that they prefer, or can we guide them into specific associations by colors? Now, here on the left side of this image, you see 3 bottles. It's the same, you will see also on the right-hand side 3 other bottles. And if you look at the slide, which of the assortment would have the strongest taste, which one would be the more aged, for example, and which will be the most fruity ones. Now, this is something that is very interesting in the next slide for consumer preferences. If you want to address your high-end markets, we need to understand their needs. So with those color associations and this tone of voice, your wine bottle will have a more high-end look, it will have a higher quality perception, also a stronger taste, and your consumer will also accept this higher price. If you look at the commercial market, other needs, they also need other perceptions. So this means that with these other colors, it's also a red, it's also a green, and it's also pinkish colors. It will have a more commercial look, a lower quality perception, a less strong taste perception, but the consumer will be attracted by its lower price. So how do color impact consumer perceptions and behavior? You will see this on this slide, that you always have to create a good experience and use your colors more effectively. You need to understand which colors you have to put together, and creating this color harmony with the differences in real color looks. It's about the arrangement of colors in all possible communication elements. You need to put them in the most attractive and impactful way for the perception of the users, and you will guide your customer in the best possible way. Thank you.
So thank you, Karin, for this very clear explanation. So clearly it's about the color nuance that makes a big difference. And before we dive into some concrete examples, we want to show briefly how we approach packaging research and which steps we can discern. We are big fans of design thinking, and initially this also means that we have to look closely at what is already present in terms of knowledge about the category, the consumer, the competition, and so on. So a packaging audit is what we will do as a first step. And in this respect, we often conduct a brand asset research to identify the relevant and distinct assets. And other studies can also be done to discover, for example, how the consumer looks at the category or the brand. But certainly the color audit is a very important part, of which we will show some more practical examples hereafter. In the second step, we have a co-creation and ideation phase, where we gather all stakeholders around the table and formulate clear guidelines and first drafts based on the audit phase. And in the test phase, we regularly conduct an online or other type of study to validate the packaging amongst consumers, but we also make use of predictive intelligence, which, based on available data from thousands of eye tracking studies and artificial intelligence, predicts how a consumer looks at the packaging during the first 3 seconds. So let's look at an example. This exercise applying predictive intelligence results in a kind of heat map that indicates which elements of the packaging are seen within the first 3 seconds and in what order they are seen. It also results in 3 different measurements or scores: the clarity score, the excitingness score, and the color success factor. The clarity score shows on a scale of 0 to 100 how cluttered or clear the packaging appears. Higher scores indicate that the packaging is clear. The excitingness score shows on a scale of 0 to 100 how stimulating the packaging is perceived. Lower scores indicate a more calming design than high scores. And finally, the color success factor measures whether the right colors have been used and whether they have been used in the right way. And all these scores are compared as much as possible with the current packaging or the competition to quantify the differences. But now let's take a look at some color audit cases that we have carried out. And let's start with the Belmio brand. It's a brand that makes coffee capsules for the well-known Nespresso coffee machines. And Belmio was a new brand that was about to be introduced in the market. And they were a bit stuck as to what colors to use for the different flavors they want to introduce. So we started with a small existing range of capsules with the challenge of supplementing a range of capsules that would have a big impact, both visually and on a multisensory level regarding taste and smell. So Karin, can you explain how that went?
Yes, for sure. So a color audit, how did we work? So as Jasper explained, it's a new brand. They did not have a clear brand identity, but it's a coffee product. So it's necessary to include this flavor association from the beginning. So it was also a mid-high segment market, aluminium capsule, and the first products were launched and did not have a specific color identity. So after the intake of the brand values and positionings, we start measuring the colors. We map them in our color coordinates, our CN color coordinates in the system, and we defined the necessary associations. Now, to support a range in the future and anticipate extensions, even when not all product flavors are launched at the same time, we have to define a clear color frame in a color strategy. From 10,000 colors we have in our system, we make the necessary selection using the predefined parameters. Here, of course, they are mainly identified by coffee properties. The color selection were conducted on, first you see here, they were conducted on 2 axes. One axis is a color tone of voice. It's a vertical axis. And you see we had on the left side for the strong, short, intense coffees, colors towards lighter coffee drinks. The horizontal axis, it's more the color and taste association defined by sweeter or more bitter coffees. And then it was important to see that we have enough color difference between them. So it's in addition to really the identity parameters of a coffee taste, it's important that always there is enough difference between the different colors, between similar products, so that the consumer doesn't make a mistake. For example, we can apply a dark orange, a medium orange, or a light orange. It can, if the difference is enough, we can use them. Now on the next slide, you see an extra selection that we always apply in our color identities, is that we have to apply combination parameters, color combination. So interpretations within the overall identity of the brand. And we also developed some possible extra special range colors. For example, when you want to have a special flavor or a summer-based product. The result of this total color identity is a total brand experience, including a shop in a shop. So the overall identity seduces the customer in a world and a taste experience that matches his or her expectations. So a certified color identity on the packaging, the selection of the colors for the aluminium capsules, and also the interior interpretation, advertising campaigns, website interpretation, and a consistent sensory experience at all levels. Another case I want to introduce is the EG packaging. We introduced for this international company a two-color packaging in the pharmaceutical environment instead of a one-colored packaging. So through the colors, we activate movement, and this guides the eye movement in the best way to guide the users, but also everyone who is working with these medications. How did we proceed and what was the goal? In terms of color psychology, signs and emotions are linked. That's what we already explained. At EG, Eurogenerics, we started to map the effects of the drugs on the patient's disorders so that they have the right appearance and evoke the right emotions. So for example, colors with a higher vibration frequency have a different effect than those with a low vibration frequency. The color red, for example, it will increase our adrenaline and we will feel excited, and the color green will make us more restful and make us feel in harmony to ease us or to keep us alert. For example, the packaging had to be more calming for someone with high blood pressure. Now, we introduced, you see on the next slide, we introduced a two-color packaging, and the color strategy is based on clear color contrasts, together here with a psychological impact for any medical condition that they wanted to have medication for. It was important to have it very clearly how strong the drugs is, because you don't want to have mistakes made by pharmacists or hospitals, and of course not for the patient himself. So the affinity lies in the shades of the colors, and it can only be installed, this way of working, when the exact color coordinates are implemented. So when we use those clear differences, it will activate the correct intuitive reaction. And if we have a mistake, those slight color changes will have a huge impact, because it's very important not to have those mistakes. Color can also steer the viewer in a functional way, as already said. A hierarchy in your message is key. So if you use the correct color application during your design process, it will help you to guide for every of the 800 packagings we had to design in always the good way to implement the color schemes. When we provide those color guidelines, it's a great support for anyone who is working with color. So the consistency of this color use translates it into a great affinity for your consumer, and in this case, of course, for all medical supports. Now, in the meantime, the new EG rebranding and repackaging and the 800 packagings have been a great success. Consistency is ensured. The brand identity is powerful and all stakeholders are happy. The Stada Group naturally wanted to optimize also the visibility and identity of the EG brand by rebranding this packaging. In the meantime, they've earned several national and international awards in 1 year time, with the approach and launched campaign because of the innovative, in-depth and sustainable approach. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Karen. I hope it's clear for everybody now that a slightly different nuance of blue or green can make a huge impact on behavior, perception, but also the performance of products. So I think as a web op, we are almost at the end of the session. I think as a web op, 95% of all our decisions are unconsciously driven. And within that, almost 85% of all buying, we see that color is the dominant factor. So you'd better get your color right to create the necessary and the correct impact on your consumers. So it's the end of the session now. As promised, we have some time for Q&A. If you afterwards have any questions, you can drop an email at againstthetight@oneinchwhale.com, and we will answer your questions in this way. But if you have any questions, please just put them in the Q&A box. I see a couple of people with questions. One question here is, packaging is nice in its individual state, but how do you take competition into consideration? I think that's a good question for you, Jasper, to answer.
Yeah, indeed. So you can create a packaging that uses the perfect colors to communicate your message, but if it doesn't stand out on shelf, it will not easily sell. So in this respect, we often also perform an audit on the competitive environments to see which colors they use and how they use it, and take these learnings when we consider the target packaging. And moreover, in our predictive intelligence tool, we will mostly analyze the target packaging within the competitive environment, within a shelf environment, for example, to assess the visual attention and the standout. And also our consumer evaluation test, of course, takes the competitive environment into account.
Okay, thank you. Just going to pick one more question. And what we will anyhow do, this is a third webinar that we are giving. We will wrap up all of the questions and collect all of the answers and share them with all the participants so that you can also look a bit what questions were in the audience. Just one more question from the US. Isn't there a difference in the US perception of colors compared to Europe? And I think maybe Karin, you can answer that.
Yes, it's a fact that color use worldwide, it has been influenced by, for example, the position of the sun and the intensity of light in an area because of the reflection. For example, we feel where there's a lot of light, colorful houses, they blend well in the surroundings, and where there is more less light, we'll probably see not a lot of very colorful houses in the surroundings. But it's also cultural impacts. Hundreds of years of repetitive use. For example, in India, we use white for mourning, and in Europe, we use this for we use the color black for this. So it means that in our system, we mapped all the knowledge that is existing on our, linked to our coordinates. So this means that if we need to make a selection of certain colors in a certain target area, we can refine the chosen colors. But if you want to have a worldwide spread of your products, then we also can find out which are the best suitable colors for your applications. So it's a fact that there are differences, but it's covered by the system.
Okay, thank you, Karin. I think we will answer all the other questions individually, and as said, we will wrap it up and share it with all the participants. And as promised, there is something we give away at the end of the session. So good that you all stayed tuned. So we will give a free mini color audit away of a packaging. And what do you have to do? Well, you will receive an email after the session. It will be in 1 or 2 hours at the latest that you will receive that. With amongst the presentation of today, also a link where you can upload a packaging and give some background on that. And the first 5 who will do that, they will win a free audit. So you have a couple of hours to think already about the packaging and put everything set to upload it. The first 5 will win a free mini color audit of this packaging. So I want to thank you all for your participation. If you have any questions, please do send an email to ourselves personally or againstTide@oneinchrail.com. And thank you so much. Keep safe, be healthy, and hopefully speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Bye.